Maya Chen was checking notifications on the UberEats app while parked on a side street in Beacon Hill. It was her 6th order of the day and another trip to Boston's prestigious neighborhood. At 26, she was used to such contrasts. Mornings spent photographing sunrises for her half-empty portfolio, afternoons delivering food to homes that cost more than she could ever earn in a lifetime. Her beat-up Honda Civic seemed out of place among the parked Porsches and Teslas. As she pulled up to the imposing red-brick mansion, Maya checked the address. 342 Bacon Street, another order from the Townsends. This was the 4th time she had delivered food here in the last month. Maya took out her phone, pretending to check the order details, and discreetly photographed the front of the house. Something about this mansion, with its massive white columns and perfectly trimmed hedges, fascinated her. Or maybe it was the people who lived there. "You again," said Elise Townsend, opening the door. Her impeccably styled blonde hair and cashmere suit made her look like she had just stepped out of the pages of Vogue magazine. "I hope it hasn't gone cold this time." Maya nodded, holding out a bag from an expensive restaurant. Rolls for 2, a bottle of sake, and some dessert with an unpronounceable French name. During previous deliveries, she had almost always seen Elise alone, although she knew from the society column in the local newspaper that the woman was married to a well-known financial advisor. "Bon appétit," Maya muttered, receiving a generous tip through the app. When the door closed, she didn't immediately head for her car. Something made her linger. Maybe it was the desire to take another look at this palace, or maybe it was simple human curiosity. Maya walked around the house, pretending to head for her car along the long driveway, when her attention was drawn to the light pouring from the panoramic kitchen window. Elise was standing there, but she wasn't alone. Next to her was a man, slender, with olive skin and hair pulled back into a casual bun. He was wearing a white chef's jacket. He set down a bottle of sake and casually put his arm around Elise's waist, pressing his lips to her neck. Maya froze, feeling the blood rush to her cheeks. She shouldn't have seen that. Yet she couldn't look away. She took out her smartphone and took a series of quick pictures. "They'll be useful for my photography practice," she told herself. Composition. The play of light and shadow. Nothing personal. Over the next few days, Maya caught herself looking at these photos often. Elise Townsend and the unknown chef. She found Elise's profile on social media, the perfect socialite, patron of several art galleries, wife of the influential Victor Townsend. In the photos, the couple looked like the perfect pair. When she wasn't making deliveries, Maya started coming to Bacon Street. Armed with a camera with a long focus lens, she photographed the house, guests coming and going, and Elise's car when she returned from evening events. Once, she managed to photograph Victor, a tall man with an authoritative bearing who, judging by all appearances, was rarely at home. Maya rented a tiny studio in Dorchester. The walls of her home were covered with photographs. Among the cityscapes and portraits of random passers-by, there were now pictures of the Townsends' mansion. Gradually, there were more and more of them. Maya came to UberEats after 2 years of unsuccessful attempts to get a job as a photographer at a reputable publication. Her bachelor's degree in photojournalism didn't really help her pay the bills. Working as a courier gave her a flexible schedule and the opportunity to travel around the city, photographing interesting places and people between orders. After searching for the name on social media, Maya discovered that the chef's name was Dominic Reyes. Dom Reyes, personal chef, catering for special occasions, gastronomy consulting, read his professional profile. The photos showed exquisite dishes and satisfied customers. Elise was not among them, although the Townsends were mentioned in the list of regular customers. After a few weeks, Maya knew the daily routine of the residents of the house on Bacon Street better than her own. Victor left early and returned late. Elise spent her mornings at spas, met with friends or did charity work during the day, and twice a week, Dominique came to visit her in the evenings. Officially, it was to cook dinner. In reality, it was for something more, judging by the way they looked at each other. One evening, looking through the photos she had taken that day, Maya caught herself having a strange thought. She was jealous, not of the luxury, the expensive clothes, or the prestigious address. She was jealous of this other life, a life full of possibilities, where no one counts the cents until payday or worries about the deposit for an apartment. At that moment, it dawned on her. Photographing someone else's life from a distance was one thing, but what if she could become part of that world, at least for a while, at least on the sidelines? Looking at the last photos, where Dominic was entering a small farm cafe near the Queen's Market, Maya made a decision. It was time to stop being just an observer. She would meet him, get to know him, learn more about the Townsends firsthand. It would be an interesting photo project, she told herself. A documentary story about the lives of Boston's elite, told from the inside. Maya refused to think that it was more like an obsession than a professional interest. The Green Market Farm Cafe was located 2 blocks from the Quincy Market. Maya came here for the 3rd day in a row, always at the same time, 8:15 a.m. According to her observations, Dominic Reyes stopped by here before shopping for groceries to drink his morning coffee. She took a strategic position by the window, taking out her sketchbook to justify her long stay over a cup of cappuccino. She left her camera at home. It was too intrusive. Today, she was not an observer photographer, but a potential participant in the scene. Maya noticed him immediately. Even in everyday clothes, dark jeans and a simple gray t-shirt, Dominic looked elegant. He took a seat at the counter and, after placing his order, began checking his phone. The moment came when the barista called out, "Americano for Dominic." Maya stood up, as if in response to her name being called, and bumped into him at the counter. "Sorry, I thought that was my order," she muttered, pretending to be embarrassed. Dominic smiled, fine lines appearing at the corners of his eyes. Up close, he looked younger than he did in photos, no more than 30. "No problem," he replied with a slight accent. "You'll have to wait for your cappuccino." "How did you know I ordered a cappuccino?" He nodded toward her table by the window. A professional habit of noticing details related to food and drink. It was the perfect start. 5 minutes later, they were sitting at the same table. Maya introduced herself as a freelancer working on a project about Boston street food. Dominic enthusiastically joined the conversation, and she listened intently to his thoughts on culinary traditions, jotting down notes in her notebook. Maya deliberately avoided mentioning her job at UberEats, or that she had seen him at the Townsends' house. All in good time. "So you're a personal chef?" she asked when the conversation turned to his career. "I have a small client base," Dominic replied. "Mostly wealthy families who prefer to dine at home but with restaurant quality." "Sounds interesting. Do you like working for rich people?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "Some clients become closer than others." That pause told Maya more than a long answer would have. She sensed vulnerability and decided to leave it at that so as not to scare him off. The next day, she accidentally ran into Dominic again. On the 3rd day, he was already waiting for her. By the end of the week, they had exchanged phone numbers, and Maya offered to photograph his dishes to update his portfolio. "It will be beneficial for both of us," she said. "You need professional photos for your clients, and I need practice." 10 days after their first accidental meeting, Maya found herself at the Townsends' house for the first time officially. Dominic was cooking dinner for Elise and invited the photographer to capture the process of preparing and serving the dishes. Elise was not thrilled about the presence of a stranger, but Dominic convinced her that it was necessary to promote his business. Maya behaved in a highly professional manner, pretending that she had never seen this house or its owner before. "Beautiful house," she remarked between shots. "Have you lived here long?" "Almost 8 years," Elise replied, watching Dominic work. "Since my husband and I moved here from New York." As Maya photographed, She captured fragments of their relationship. The way Dominic barely touched Elise's hand as he handed her a glass of wine. The way she whispered something in his ear when she thought Maya wasn't paying attention. These were small things that could be mistaken for the usual closeness between a regular customer and a chef, but Maya knew better. Victor didn't show up that evening, even though he was supposed to be at the dinner. Elise explained that he had urgent business at the office, but her irritation was obvious. "My husband prefers work to everything else," she said bitterly, "even Dominic's delicious cuisine." The meeting with Victor Townsend took place a week later. Maya had already become something of an unofficial photographer for Dominic's culinary projects. She photographed his work in various homes, but most often at the Townsend mansion. That evening, Dominic was cooking for a small business dinner. Victor Townsend was exactly as Maya had imagined him from the photos. Tall, with impeccable posture and an authoritative gaze. But up close, she noticed other details. The fatigue in his eyes, the wrinkles from constant tension. He looked older than his 45 years. "So, you're Dominic's photographer?" he asked when Elise introduced them to each other. "I hope you're not going to post photos of our house on social media." "Of course not, Mr. Townsend," Maya assured him. It was a lie, but Victor seemed satisfied with the answer. Watching the couple interact, Maya was surprised. Victor was polite to Dominic, even friendly. There were no signs of suspicion or jealousy. Perhaps he really didn't know about his wife's infidelity, or maybe he didn't care. Over the next few weeks, Maya skillfully built a friendship with Dominic. She listened to his problems, gave him advice, and became his confidant. Dominic told her about his fears regarding his relationship with Elise, his fear of being discovered, his doubts about her sincerity, his financial dependence on the Townsends, who made up a large part of his client base. Maya supported him, but at the same time carefully fueled his doubts. She never criticized Elise directly, but sometimes asked questions that made Dominic think, "Has she ever talked about divorce? Are you sure you mean more to her than just entertainment?" She became indispensable to him, not only as a photographer, but also as a friend who was always ready to listen. Maya understood that Dominic was becoming emotionally attached to her, and that was part of her plan. At the same time, in another part of Boston, Detective Amara Jones was reviewing documents related to a high art fraud case. Several forgeries of famous artists' paintings had been sold through charity auctions. Among the auction organizers was a foundation headed by Elise Townsend. Amara studied photos from the last auction, where Elise posed with donors. In the background of one of the photos, a young woman with a camera was visible. The detective put the photo aside, not giving it much thought. At that point, the name Maya Chen meant nothing to the investigation. The end of October in Boston was unusually cold. Maya stood by the window in Dominic's studio, watching him prepare a tasting menu for a new potential client. In 2 months, she had gone from being a casual acquaintance to his confidant. Now she not only photographed his work, but also helped organize events, communicated with clients, and even participated in the creation of a new website for his business. "Do you think this sauce is rich enough?" Dominic asked, handing her a spoon. Maya tasted it. The flavor was divine, complex, multi-layered, unlike anything she had ever tasted in her usual diet. "Perfect," she replied, and Dominic beamed with pleasure. His culinary studio was located in the trendy South End neighborhood, in a loft with high ceilings and a designer kitchen. The space was tastefully decorated but understated. No ostentatious luxury, unlike the Townsend's mansion. Dominic's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "Elise," he explained. "She wants to reschedule tomorrow's dinner. Again." Maya kept a neutral expression on her face, but made a mental note. Elise had canceled several meetings with Dominic over the past few weeks. Perhaps their romance was losing its intensity. "Is that upsetting?" she asked, pretending to be busy adjusting the camera. Dominic shrugged, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his true feelings. "It's part of the game, I suppose. She's a married woman with social obligations. Still, you deserve better, Maya remarked gently. Someone who will value your time. Dominic glanced at her quickly, and Maya saw something new in his eyes. Not just gratitude for her understanding, but a glimmer of deeper interest. To her surprise, she felt her pulse quicken. It wasn't part of her plan to become genuinely interested in Dominic. He was just a means to penetrate the Townsend's world, the lifestyle she so desperately wanted to explore and, perhaps, acquire a piece of for herself. Over the past month, Maya had attended several events at the Townsend's house as Dominic's assistant. She was struck by how easily the wealthy accepted her presence, as if she were invisible. Waiters, photographers, assistants, they all existed on the periphery, like faceless service personnel, allowing Maya to observe without attracting attention. But observation grew into something more. She began to adopt elements of this lifestyle. She spent 2 weeks' salary on a designer blouse she had spotted in Elise's wardrobe. She changed her manner of speech, imitating the intonations and turns of phrase she had heard at dinner parties. Even her posture changed, becoming straighter and more confident. Her one-room apartment in Dorchester now felt foreign, a temporary refuge before the inevitable transition to a better life. The walls, hung with photographs of the Townsends and their circle, had become a kind of mood board, a visual embodiment of her aspirations. After the photo shoot at the studio, Dominic invited Maya for a glass of wine. They sat on a small terrace overlooking the city and talked about his plans to expand his business. Elise promised to introduce me to some of her friends in New York, he said. That could open up new opportunities. Maya took a sip of wine, an expensive Bordeaux she could never afford to buy herself. Do you really think you can rely on her promises? She asked, carefully pretending it was just friendly advice. After all these cancellations? Doubt flashed in Dominic's eyes. He started to answer, but his phone vibrated again. This time it was Victor Townsend himself calling. Maya watched Dominic's expression change during the short conversation, from tense to surprised. Victor wants to meet with me tomorrow, he said after the call. Alone, without Elise. What does he want to talk about? Maya asked, feeling a sudden pang of anxiety. He didn't say, only that it's important. The next day, Maya accompanied Dominic to his meeting with Victor under the pretext that they were going to the farmer's market to buy groceries. In reality, she wanted to see Victor and observe his behavior. They met at a private club in Boston's financial district. Maya waited in the lobby, pretending to look at photos on her camera, but closely watching the men's interaction through the glass partition. Victor looked impeccable in his gray suit. He and Dominic talked for about half an hour. Maya couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see the expressions on their faces change. Dominic looked alarmed at first, then puzzled, and finally almost frightened. When he returned to her, his face was pale. Is everything okay? Maya asked, trying to hide her curiosity behind concern. Not sure, Dominic muttered. Victor was talking about some business problems. He wants me to be careful about what I say to clients about the Townsends. That's strange, Maya remarked. Why is he discussing this with you and not with Elise? That's what bothers me, Dominic replied. I think he knows about Elise and me. Maya spent the rest of the day thinking about that conversation. If Victor knew about the affair, why didn't he confront his wife directly? Why was he having strange conversations with her lover instead? Something didn't add up. A week after that conversation, Elise invited Maya to photograph a charity event at their house. It was a promotion, from being Dominic's assistant to being the official photographer of the event. During the evening, Maya noticed Victor watching her. Not openly, but clearly enough for her to feel his gaze. When the guests began to leave, he approached her. I hope you got some good shots, Miss Chen, he said. Elise says you have a talent for capturing what others miss. There was a subtext to his words, and Maya felt uncomfortable. She was about to leave when Victor added, By the way, my office doesn't need to be photographed. I hope you understand. It sounded like a warning. Late in the evening, when everyone had left and Dominic was busy in the kitchen, Maya couldn't resist the temptation. Making sure no one was watching, she slipped into Victor's office. The door was unlocked. The room looked like a typical office of a successful financier. Expensive furniture, bookshelves, a computer on the desk. Maya quickly looked around, not knowing what she was looking for. Time was short. Dominic or one of the staff might notice her absence. On the desk was a folder with the logo of Elise's charitable foundation. Maya opened it. Inside were financial reports that meant little to her, but one document caught her attention. It was a letter from an auction house mentioning inconsistencies in the provenance, history of ownership, of several paintings sold through the foundation. Next to it was another document, a printout of an email from a certain Rafael Moreno, an art expert, with an attached report on the authenticity of the same paintings. The report was disappointing. There was a high probability of forgery. Maya quickly took several photos of the documents on her phone and put everything back in its place. As she was leaving the office, she bumped into Victor in the hallway. "Lost?" he asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I was looking for the restroom," Maya lied. "It's on the other side of the building," Victor replied without moving. "I hope you found what you were looking for." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Victor knew she had been in his office, and he may have allowed her to be there. Later that night, looking through the photos she had taken in her apartment, Maya tried to piece together the puzzle. The Townsends, or at least Elise through her foundation, could be involved in the sale of fake art. That explained Victor's strange behavior and his warning to Dominic to be careful. Maya realized she had discovered something dangerous, but instead of fear, she felt excitement. This information gave her power, the key to the world she so desperately wanted to enter. Now the question was, how to use it. And then there was Dominic. More and more often, Maya caught herself thinking that her interest in him was no longer purely utilitarian. His sincerity, talent, and even vulnerability began to truly attract her. This complicated the situation. Her original plan to use him as a ticket into the Townsend's life now conflicted with her growing affection. Maya didn't know what was more dangerous, the secret she had discovered or the feelings she was beginning to experience. The storage room in the basement of the Townsend's mansion was perfectly organized. Wine racks on one side, shelves with canned goods and kitchen utensils on the other. Even in such a functional room, one could sense the impeccable order and taste of the owners of the house. The only discordant detail was a woman's hand hanging lifelessly from behind a stack of boxes of expensive porcelain. An elderly housekeeper, who had gone down to the basement to get canned tomatoes for the sauce Dominic was preparing, screamed so piercingly that she was heard 2 floors above. When the gardener, who had rushed to the scene, moved the boxes, they discovered the body of Maya Chen. Multiple stab wounds to the chest and neck left no doubt as to the cause of death. But what was particularly horrifying were the victim's arms and legs. They had been neatly severed from the torso and placed nearby, like the parts of a dismantled doll. Detective Amara Jones arrived at the scene 40 minutes after the call. By that time, the mansion had been cordoned off by the police. Forensic experts were examining the crime scene, and the shocked residents of the house were giving their initial statements to the officers. "Detective," greeted Lieutenant Morris, who had been in charge of the operation before her arrival. "A particularly brutal murder. The victim is an Asian woman, 26 years old, preliminarily identified as Maya Chen, a photographer. She worked with the family's personal chef, a certain Dominic Reyes." Jones put on shoe covers and gloves before going down to the basement. The body had already been photographed, but had not yet been removed. In the sterile light of the police spotlights, the blood looked almost black. "Time of death?" she asked the medical examiner, who was sitting next to the body. "Preliminary estimate is between midnight and 3 in the morning," he replied. "I'll be more precise after the autopsy." The detective carefully examined the crime scene. The storage room was relatively clean, except for the area around the victim, where blood had formed a large pool. Was she killed here? It looks that way. There's too much blood to have moved the body. The dismemberment was also done on site. The murder weapon? Judging by the wounds, a knife with a narrow blade about 6 inches long, possibly a professional kitchen knife. This detail made Jones frown. A chef with access to professional knives. Too obvious. Who found the body? She asked as she went upstairs. The housekeeper, Consuela Ramirez. She's in the living room giving a statement. In the living room, Jones found 3 people. An elderly Latina woman sitting with a cup of tea, a pale man in his 30s in a chef's uniform pacing nervously around the room, and a tall, middle-aged man in an expensive suit talking quietly on the phone. The lieutenant introduced them: Consuela Ramirez, Dominic Reyes, and Victor Townsend, the owner of the house. Townsend's wife, Elise, was resting in the bedroom under the supervision of a doctor. She had suffered a nervous breakdown after hearing the news of the murder. Mr. Townsend, Jones addressed Victor after he finished his call, I need to ask you and your wife a few questions. My wife is not in a condition to talk right now, Victor replied coldly. I am at your disposal, although I don't understand how I can help. I first saw this girl just a couple of months ago. She worked with our chef. Jones looked at Dominic, who had stopped walking and was staring at a single point. And you, Mr. Reyes? Tell us about your relationship with Miss Chen. Dominic flinched, as if waking up. We worked together. She photographed my dishes for my portfolio. Sometimes she helped out at events. And that's all? Dominic met Victor's gaze before answering. Yes, a professional relationship. Jones noted the pause and the look. Both of them were holding something back. By evening, the detective had pieced together a preliminary picture. Maya Chen was last seen alive yesterday around 10 p.m. when she left the Townsend's charity dinner. According to Dominic, she had forgotten her camera and said she would come back for it later. The camera was found in the kitchen, but it was unclear whether Maya had returned for it that same evening or planned to pick it up today. Victor claimed he had spent the night at home with his wife. Elise confirmed his alibi, although she did so after talking to her husband, which diminished the value of her testimony. Dominic said he left immediately after the event for his studio in South End, where he spent the night alone. CCTV footage confirmed his departure from the mansion, but not the time of his return home. Jones requested a search warrant for Maya's apartment. Something strange was found in her apartment. Dozens of photographs of the Townsend family, their home, and their guests, many of which were taken from a distance, through windows, clearly without the knowledge of those being photographed. On a separate wall hung photographs of Dominic and Elise together in unambiguous situations. It looked like a bulletin board in a detective agency, or the room of an obsessed stalker. An even more disturbing discovery was photocopies of documents with the logos of Elise's charity and auction house, indicating possible fraud involving the sale of allegedly fake works of art. This changes the case, Jones said to her partner. Perhaps we are not dealing with a crime of passion, but with a murder to cover up financial fraud. By the end of the 3rd day of the investigation, Victor Townsend had become the prime suspect. Apparently, he knew about his wife's infidelity and had a motive and opportunity to kill Maya if she was blackmailing him with information about the fake paintings. An expert examination established that some of the works sold through the Elise Foundation were indeed high-quality fakes, and the commissions from their sale amounted to millions of dollars. Jones obtained a warrant to seize all sharp objects from the Townsend's kitchen, including Dominic's set of professional knives. Experts had to determine whether one of them could have been the murder weapon. On the 4th day of the investigation, there was an unexpected turn of events. An analysis of Maya's phone revealed intense correspondence not only with Dominic, but also with Elise. The messages had become increasingly personal and tense in recent weeks. Elise seemed to suspect that Maya had feelings for Dominic and was trying to warn her against interfering in their relationship. The last message sent by Elise the day before the murder read, "We need to have a serious talk. Alone. Come over tomorrow after the event." When Jones showed these messages to Elise, she first denied their existence, then admitted it, but insisted that the conversation was supposed to be about professional matters only. She was becoming intrusive, Elise said, nervously adjusting her perfect hairstyle. Always around Dominic, always trying to get his attention. I just wanted to set some boundaries. Now the suspicion fell on Elise. She had a motive, jealousy, and the opportunity. She invited Maya back to the house late at night. Moreover, further examination of the financial documents showed that it was Elise, not Victor, who was the main contact person for the art experts who appraised the problematic paintings. But analysis of one of Dominic's knives showed traces of Maya's blood, even though the knife had been thoroughly washed. Experts confirmed that this was the instrument used to inflict the fatal wounds and dismember the body. When Detective Jones presented the results of the examination to Dominic, he turned pale but insisted on his innocence. "Someone took my knife," he said in a trembling voice. "I would never have hurt Maya. We had become close recently." "How close?" Jones asked, watching his reaction closely. "We weren't lovers, if that's what you're asking," Dominic replied. "But she had become important to me. She understood me better than—" He trailed off. "Better than Elise?" Dominic nodded silently. Jones began to suspect that there was a love triangle involved, perhaps even more complicated than it had initially appeared. But there was another line of investigation: financial fraud involving works of art. If Maya had blackmailed someone in the Townsends with this information, it provided a strong motive for murder. On the 7th day of the investigation, Jones received the results of the examination of Maya's computer. It contained draft emails that she planned to send to the FBI and the Securities and Exchange Commission, with a detailed description of the scheme to sell fake artworks through Elise's charitable foundation. Maya had collected evidence systematically and methodically, documenting every detail. On the same day, the results of the analysis of the fibers found under the victim's fingernails were received. They matched the fabric of an exclusive suit, several copies of which were not in Victor's wardrobe, but one of which belonged to Dominic, a gift from Elise, as he later explained. All the evidence pointed to Dominic, but Detective Jones couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something. Why did Victor seem so uninterested in the investigation of a murder that had taken place in his home? Why was Elise so insistent on defending Dominic, despite the obvious evidence against him? And where was the memory card from Maya's camera, the only thing missing from the crime scene? Jones returned to the Townsends' house for a second look. This time, she noticed a strange detail. One of the vases in the living room contained freshly cut flowers, the same ones she had seen in the photo Maya had taken on the night of the murder. This meant that the murder had taken place before the flowers wilted, within 24 hours of the event. During this time frame, all three suspects, Victor, Elise, and Dominic, had enough time and opportunity to commit the crime. That evening, Jones received an important message. A street surveillance camera installed on a neighboring house had recorded a car similar to Dominic's returning to the Townsends' mansion at around 1:30 a.m. on the day of the murder, several hours after he claimed to have left for home. It was a compelling argument for arresting Dominic. Yet Jones hesitated. Something about the case continued to seem wrong, incomplete. It was as if another, much darker story lay hidden behind the obvious tale of jealousy and passion. Rain drummed on the roof of the police station as Detective Amara Jones spread the case files on the table. It was the 10th day of the investigation. Dominic Reyes was in custody as the prime suspect, but she still wasn't sure he was guilty. "What are we missing?" she muttered, flipping through photos from the crime scene. The phone rang. It was Officer Patterson, who had been sent to re-examine Maya's studio. "Detective, we found something behind the sofa upholstery. It looks like a memory card wrapped in plastic." An hour later, Jones was already viewing the contents of the card on her computer. The last photos were taken on the night of the murder, after the charity event. They showed Maya returning to the Townsend's house, and the first shots were clearly taken through the kitchen window. The next series of photos showed Elise in her office, looking through some documents. Then there was a confrontation between Maya and Elise. Judging by the expressions on both women's faces, the conversation was tense. The last 3 photos were blurry, as if taken in a hurry or during a struggle. In the last photo, the silhouette of a third person entering the room was visible. Jones enlarged the image, trying to make out the details. The third person was a tall man, but due to the poor quality of the photo, it was impossible to say with certainty whether it was Victor or Dominic. Another clue emerged after re-questioning the housekeeper, Consuela. The elderly woman recalled an important detail. On the morning after the murder, she noticed that one of the basement windows was slightly open, although they were usually all tightly closed. This could mean that the killer used this route to enter or leave the house unnoticed. Jones went to the mansion to check this information and discovered that the window overlooked the back of the garden, where there were no surveillance cameras. From there, a small gate provided discreet access to the neighboring street, bypassing the main CCTV system that had recorded Dominic's car. This discovery prompted the detective to review the entire timeline of events. What if someone had used Dominic's car as a diversion? The next step was a detailed analysis of the Townsend's financial documents. Victor was on the verge of bankruptcy after several unsuccessful investments. Elise's charitable foundation was the family's last stable source of income, and it was through it that transactions with fake works of art were conducted. The final clue came from an unexpected source. Computer experts recovered Maya's deleted correspondence with an unknown contact saved under the initials VT, Victor Townsend. In her messages, Maya hinted at her knowledge of the forgeries and suggested meeting to discuss a mutually beneficial agreement. In the interrogation room, Victor Townsend remained ice cold, even when Jones presented him with the recovered messages. "I didn't kill her," he said. "Yes, she blackmailed me, but I was going to pay." "Then tell us what happened that night," Jones demanded. And Victor told her. Flashback, the night of the murder. After the charity event, Victor sat in his office waiting for Maya. They had agreed to meet at midnight, when Elise would take her sleeping pill and fall asleep. Maya arrived on time, slipping in through the service entrance. She looked nervous, but determined. "$5 million, and I'll forget everything I know about your forgeries," she said without preamble. "Otherwise, everything will go to the FBI tomorrow morning." Victor remained calm. "That's impossible. I can get $1 million at most, and not right away." Their argument was interrupted by an unexpected sound. Elise was standing in the office doorway. "So that's what you've been doing all this time," she said to Maya, her voice sounding less like jealousy and more like cold anger. "You weren't interested in Dominic. You wanted money." Maya backed away, grabbing her camera. "I know about your fakes, about how you cheated collectors out of millions," she blurted out. "Elise, leave us alone," Victor asked. "I'll take care of this." But Elise ignored her husband. She slowly approached Maya. "You thought you could come into my house, manipulate my chef, snoop around for my secrets, and just demand money." Something glinted in her hand, a knife, which she must have picked up in the kitchen on her way over. Events unfolded rapidly. Maya took several pictures as she backed toward the door. Victor tried to stop his wife, but Elise was faster. She caught up with Maya in the hallway, and the first blow landed on her shoulder. Maya screamed, fighting back with her free hand, but Elise continued to strike with cold methodicality. Victor froze in the office doorway, paralyzed by horror at what was happening. When it was over, Elise stood over Maya's body, still clutching the knife. Her white dress was splattered with blood. "We need to get rid of the body," she said with frightening calm. "Call Dominic." End of flashback. "I called him," Victor continued, staring at the table. "I told him we had an emergency. He arrived in half an hour. By that time," he faltered, By that time, Elise had already dragged the body to the basement. She was always stronger than she looked. "And the dismemberment?" Jones asked, trying to keep her tone professional. Dominic refused to help when he saw what had happened. He loved Maya, but Elise convinced him that if we called the police, they would decide that he had killed Maya out of jealousy. She made him give her his knives and leave. She said she would take care of everything herself. "And you let your wife do that?" Victor looked up for the first time. "You don't know Elise. She leaves no witnesses and makes no mistakes. Ever." Victor's confession led to the arrest of Elise Townsend. A search of her personal safe, hidden in the dressing room, uncovered a memory card from Maya's camera and a set of jewelry belonging to the victim, refuting the robbery theory. Dominic was released, although he was charged with accessory after the fact for helping to conceal evidence. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he confirmed Victor's story and revealed his affair with Elise, which had begun more than 2 years earlier. During questioning, Elise remained unyielding. "She threatened everything I had," she told Detective Jones without a hint of remorse. "First, she tried to steal Dominic. Then she started blackmailing us. People like her have no right to intrude into our world." The examination found Elise to be sane. At trial, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Victor, who pleaded guilty to concealing evidence and art fraud, received 10 years in prison. Dominic received 3 years probation for aiding and abetting after the murder. The Townsends' entire estate was confiscated to pay compensation to defrauded art collectors. A year later, Detective Amara Jones stopped her car at a small cemetery in the suburbs of Boston. Today was the anniversary of Maya Chen's death, and the detective felt it was her duty to visit her grave. To her surprise, she saw Dominic standing there with a bouquet of wildflowers. Noticing the detective, he nodded but did not leave. "Do you come here often?" Jones asked, approaching him. "Every month," he replied. "Sometimes I think I could have saved her if only I had realized earlier how dangerous Elise was." "You couldn't have known," Jones said, repeating what she told all the loved ones of murder victims. But in this case, she wasn't sure that was true. All the signs were there. "You know what the worst part is?" Dominic continued. "Maya was really starting to fall in love with me, and I was too caught up in the glamour of the Townsends' world to notice. I always wanted to be part of their circle, and in the end, I lost everything. Including your freedom," Jones remarked, reminding him of his suspended sentence. "That's nothing compared to what she lost." After a short silence, Dominic asked, "What happened to Maya's photos? The ones that weren't evidence?" "They were sent to her parents in San Francisco. They're planning to organize an exhibition of her work. They say there are a lot of really good pictures there." They stood there for a while longer and then went their separate ways. On the way back to the station, Detective Jones reflected on how desire, obsession, and the thirst for wealth had intertwined in this story, turning ordinary people into a killer and a victim. Maya was obsessed with the life she never had. Dominic was obsessed with the status that his relationship with Elise gave him. Elise was obsessed with controlling her perfect world. Victor was obsessed with maintaining the illusion of prosperity. Ultimately, they all found themselves trapped by their own desires. Months later, an exhibition of Maya Chen's work entitled The Window opened at a contemporary art gallery in Boston. Among the many professional photographs were shots of the Townsends' mansion, now sold at auction, and its former inhabitants, captured at moments when they were unaware of the observer's presence. The last exhibit was a photograph Maya took on her first visit to the house, a view of the luxurious mansion through the window of her old Honda Civic. It was a symbolic boundary between two worlds that she had tried so desperately to cross. In a Massachusetts state prison, Elise Townsend studied a photograph of the exhibition published in a magazine. Her face remained impassive, but her hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. Dominic Reyes started a new life in Chicago, opening a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. The locals knew nothing about his past, and he preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Detective Amara Jones was assigned a new case, another murder, another story of how human passions turn into crimes. The circle was complete, but the memory of the girl who tried to penetrate a foreign world through the lens of her camera lived on.